this, but Don, I think, is probably the most prolific author on decoys and decoy history today. 3 books and lots of articles in Decoy magazine. Joe, what comes to mind is the Godfather. The stories, the knowledge that this guy has, just amazing. And tonight I think you're going to enjoy him sharing some of that with all of us. And I really appreciate the Tonellis coming tonight and providing this opportunity for us to share with each other. So without any more interruption from me, I'll turn it over to Joe.
Thank you.
Well, too long? No. Okay. I don't know, Donna. I hope this many people show up at my wake. Anyway, I guess you start at the beginning.
Yeah, you gotta have free booze, Joe.
Free booze the way.
Be an Irish way.
It's going to be that way, too. If anybody are there, it's going to be music and booze and that, no crying. Anyway, decoy collecting. For me, it started about 1962-3. I happened to be very fortunate to be born in the right place, the right time, and I kind of had the right idea of what I liked, and that was duck hunting. Around 1963, I was guiding. I was a junior in high school. I was guiding for Murray Crowder. He was the sports rep for Sears and Roebuck. They owned a club called the Green Wing Club down Lake Snatchwine. And Murray one day said, hey, why don't you start picking up some wooden decoys for me? And I said, why? He said, well, I just want them and that. And I didn't know it, but at the time he was selling them to Will Pennington. I don't know, there's a few of you, quite a few you probably knew or heard of Will Pennington, but him along with Joe French were the 2 major factors of collecting in the Midwest for a long time. So I started picking up decoys for nothing, 50 cents, $1 at the most. I probably went through 500-700 before I started keeping them. They were literally all over the place. I lived in Spring Valley, population about 5,000 people, had 50 duck hunters in there. There was 50 duck hunters in there from 1900 to this day. Down the river, there was Depew with 20 duck hunters, Princeton 50 duck hunters, Hennepin Bureau another 50 duck hunters. There was at least 20 major duck clubs within a 30-mile area of me. Everyone knows that I had Elliston in my backyard, Purdue, Graves, Walker, Tionelli, Scheinheider. They were all in that 50-mile stretch of the river from Spring Valley to Peoria. So there literally was, at one time, who knows, there could have been 10,000 decoys in that area. The first show, or I'm getting ahead of myself, the first collector I met was Will Pennington. He come knocking at my door one day about 1966 and gave me a lesson in decoy trading, and I traded him a Elliston Blue Wing Teal for a pair of repainted McAlphin Purdue Mallards. I mean, he brought those things out, and I looked at them, and they looked like a Christmas tree to me. I had them, I was really proud of them. From there, I met French, Joe French. And he kind of took me under his wing. At this time, he was living in St. Louis, and I jumped in the car and drove down there, and I was just dumbfounded. And then he told me about Mackey. So I kind of had, what the hell? I got Mackey's book, got Hal Sorensen's, excuse me.
Good job, John.
John's doing that.
Sound good.
One day I just decided, well, I'm going to call up this Mackey guy. How many of you met Mackey? 2? Well, he was God and the devil and everyone in between. What he said, that was it. And he was the king, and it was just something to talk to him. So we were talking, he was going to come out to the Davenport show, and I said, what's the chance of me getting a cob goose? And this was 1968. By then I had a couple thousand decoys, 2 kids and a wife, and no money. And nobody to sell these decoys to. That was one of the things about the early collecting. There was very, very limited correspondence or interaction among collectors. So Mackie come out there and I bought this cob goose from him. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself, that was like 68. 66 or 7 was the first show, the Midwest Decoy Show in Ottawa. I think there was 170 members showed up there, and of those, there's 5 of us left alive. Myself, Joe French, Bud Tyler, Lou Sheffrel, and David Spangler. The next show I went to was in DeKalb. And in come a bunch of the guys from Michigan. That's where I met Ben Schmidt, Jim Foote, Eddie DeNavarre, Bowman, Phyllis Elliston showed up there. I think that was it. From then it just started to escalate on and on, as we know. In the early days, that sounds strange, early days, the monetary value was just so minute. Ed DeNavarre showed up in DeKalb. He opened up his trunk, I went out there. He had at least 35 bucks. The price was $50 a piece. He also had 2 dozen mint awards. The price was $75 a piece. Everyone looked at him. He sold maybe half of them, if that. The big thing then was trade. So that's the way it just went at first. I went home and I had all these visions, you know, decoys, decoys, decoys. It was an obsession. I went out. Again, they were all over that Illinois Valley. French scratched them early in 58 and 60, but not like I could have. So I went out and we just started gathering, and I started talking and calling Mackie. That's when I got the goose. He gave me the goose for 250 bucks. He said, "Kid, you owe me a dozen Detroit Masons and 6 Purdue Crows for him." That was his fair exchange value. So I got them together, and I decided I'm going to go out there and see Mackie. Now, of course, if only 2 of you ever knew Mackie, I doubt. Anybody else ever been to his house? Man in the back. So I'm going to start this with some slides I took when I went to Mackie's, I think in 67, was it, Donna? And again, 69. So we'll do some slides and we'll go through them slow. And if anybody's got any questions, shout out.
Okay, where are they at?
This was his house. I think it was built in 1790 or something. And you're going to see real quick, like Alan's got a great decoy room, and I got one. Everybody's got these shelves. When they were collecting, quantity was the name of the game. That's the first thing everybody asked you, how many you got? Not how good they were, but how many you got. And it was a big thing to have lots of numbers. And this guy had the numbers, but he also had the quality. Next. That's him in the basement. His basement had a dirt floor, the old concrete, not brick, but just mortared walls, and you had all kind of wooden shelves put up with everything you could think of except brackets. That's Bill with it looks like a big curlew or something. I don't know where that one's from. Go ahead.
Promise the rest of it.
And that's how they were down there, like about 2,000. Now, if you look closely, there's some William Swans there. I don't know what they bring today. 50 grand, Hayden?
Probably.
mean, there's everything in there. He had a thing for baskets. He was really into baskets. And his idea, shorebirds, displaying them, was stick them in these baskets. We're still in the basement.
Joe, where was Mackie getting his decoys?
All up and down the East Coast mainly. He started, he told me, in 46. And of course, you know, there was Barber and
Didn't he tell us once, Sonny, that,
pardon?
didn't he tell us once that he would go like to the hardware store and to the barber shop and say,
Right.
I want to buy decoys, I'll be back next week. He said, I'd drive into town and I'd see this mountain of decoys in the middle of town.
Especially when he was told me he went to Chincoteague and the Carolinas and those areas, those people would just pile them up. He couldn't get enough of them in the car. They wouldn't fit.
What did Mackie do for a living?
He was a sales representative for a painting company, and he traveled that East Coast. He loved to duck hunt. He hunted with Cigar Daisy a lot. You look, now, this is the kicker. You see the swimming cob goose? That's the one I got for 250 bucks. It's facing the other way. I took it out of that, right there. And I told him I want it, and that's when we made the trade on that goose. Tommy O'Connor's got that goose now, and I, like a fool, like a lot of other things, I let it go, and I think O'Connor paid 50 or 60,000 for it at a Oliver auction before Richard went out of business. I think when he died, Johnny Hillman and tried to put a syndicate together to get $500,000 to buy the collection. They tried to get 5 guys in 1972 to do this, and they couldn't come up with 5 guys. I think they had a couple of them, and it just never panned out, and so it all went to Bourne, and I think they got a little over 500,000 overall the sales. And as all you know now, that one Bowman Curlew sold for more than his whole collection did in '72.
Hey, Joe, see the Labrador duck in the corner?
Yeah. We're still in his basement. We ain't even upstairs where the decoys are. There's a number of crows. Lincolns.
He considered these to be his worst decoys.
These were all in the basement, Russ.
These are the worst ones.
Yes, in the
This is
basement.
junk, he didn't care about this stuff.
Right.
This was inventory.
This was just, if it was down there, you could buy it. He once told me, he says, somebody comes here, there's only about 5 things I won't sell. The Mason wood duck, the Bowman curlew, the Dutch jacket plovers, and he loved his Ira Hudson flying ducks. He had 3 of them over his mantle. It's kind of mind-boggling to think those decoys were all for sale, and there was not really a lot of people there to buy them at this time.
Joe, when did they stamp them?
He stamped them at the auction. This is when you went into the kitchen, I'm sorry, the front porch. This is part of his front porch. And this was one wall on the porch. The other wall, there's a big Zachman canvas back. He must have got, I think he got that from Phyllis. Him and Phyllis were friends. There's a Charlie Walker mallard at the top. There's a little famous New Jersey wood duck. Boy, I don't know who made that folky merganser. Alan or Russ at the bottom?
Is that a boy?
Stevens Widgeon on the top.
Yeah, look at the widget.
Yeah, the Stevens widgeon on the top. That's pretty good. It looks like a Leeds Ready Turnstone. I mean, there's off the top of your head, Alan, what? 200 grand there?
More than that.
You got a couple Mason Curlews, Stevens Mallard, and Elmer Kroll, and it looks like I don't know, another Kroll. This was like a little side room. He had a thing for flickers and songbirds, and he liked Herderzals and Purdue crows he liked a lot. That was one of his favorite birds.
That was a job to clean, wasn't it?
You see his system of displaying things?
Pile on top.
Pretty good Premier Golden Eye. Cobb Goose. More Cobbs. That's a Dawson. That was his bedroom. He had a lot of alls. If you see on the bottom, that was his bedroom. He had a bed and he had 300-400 decoys in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Was he married?
Yes, but she did not live there. For a while, she lived there.
I can understand that.
Mrs. Mackey and him parted ways. His daughter Kitty was there quite a while, off and on. His son left right after school and I think moved to Baltimore or someplace.
Okay.
But when I was there was no females there.
Living there.
No comment.
Take all the pictures, Joe.
Pardon?
Did you take all the pictures?
Yeah.
Was Randy with you?
Yeah, Randy was with me a second time, yeah.
Isn't that amazing to look at now?
There's a Walker pintail if you can see it in the back.
The word pintail in the front.
Yeah, I think this Ward pintail here in the front, my boss bought it for $150,000. And you can see how Mackey had everything just piled. There's a Stevens widgeon. That's a pinch breast Ward pintail.
But he can't play ping pong. Oh, this is ping pong play.
You're right.
That's a Cobb bufflehead. Cobb curlew and a few others. He just had boxes and boxes of, I don't know where, it's hard to believe they dispersed. He was a big fan of Harold Hartel's. He had a number of those ruddy ducks, I'm sorry, Labrador ducks are Hartel's. If you look in the back there's some really pretty good dillies. I don't know if that's a crow and a dilly at the top, I can't tell. That was all Cobbs. He had that one wall. I mean, I don't know, he must have had 25, 30 Cobbs there. They were all for sale. The highest price one was $300. I mean, you could have bought a black duck or a bluebill for $50, $75. The geese were $250. The brant with the really good head were $300. I don't know if that's a Wheeler or I don't know who made that.
Imagine living in a house. It was a big store for it. The stuff that nobody wanted to buy.
The house, every house had the built-in cupboards, and they were just piled in there. One of these pictures, you're going to see that premier wood duck, and where you see it at, I don't know, that a Lincoln?
It's a Lincoln Gold Mine.
What's the
Teal, ain't it?
What's a teal?
The teal.
Yeah, green-winged teal. I don't know where that went.
McCleary had it.
Oh, okay.
It was an anchor.
Well, I think that's, I
Mason.
don't know what they are.
Mason on the top.
That was not for sale. That sat in the middle of his dining room table. That was his favorite decoy.
He had good taste.
What did it sell for at the end? 400?
476.
Pardon?
476.
Yeah, 476. You could have bought the whole house for that. Dodge Merganser and yeah, he liked that Zachman's.
You really like that, Zach?
Yeah, he had. I think he had 2 or 3 of those in that house.
Weird taste.
There, look where he had the premier wood duck.
Oh my God.
That's a $350,000 decoy, and he had a whole bunch of other junk piled around it. He's got it right alongside a Detroit mallard or something. This was a little shed in the back he had.
Not like your house, Joe.
Not quite. Mine's a little more. You'll see mine in a minute. See the Shane Wheeler goose on the floor on the way on the left?
What's the mallard drake on the table?
I don't know. I can't. I got an angle. I can't see that well.
Hey?
These he loved. These 3 things. Those shorts. It was just, you know, you went there and you didn't think there was any end to it, and it just overwhelmed you. Besides that, I didn't have any money. If you could have went there with $5,000, you probably could have turned it into $500 today.
Where did he live?
Elmont.
Oh,
Joe, where did he live?
New Jersey.
Belfort, New Jersey. I'll interject this. His family owned all this land, and he kept 2 or 3 acres in this old house, and they, of course, you know how subdivisions are, was all brand new all around him. And he kept that old house where his family was before him, and he just refused to sell the property and just lived in that house. I don't know how many of you know where he died or how he died. I think Alan might, don't you? He was at Lloyd Johnson's widow trying to buy Mason Curlew, and he had a heart attack on the porch. That's the truth. That's one of his favorite birds too. That's one of the ones they just sold, or is it coming up?
It's coming up.
That one's coming up at Sotheby's, and it'll probably bring 300 grand.
It's cool.
All right.
They're stained glass.
I don't know
now.
how many do you know Stan? He was a heck of a guy.
Yeah, got us
He'd
started.
come over to see me, drive over. Was he from Cincinnati, Alan?
Yeah, he got us started.
He'd come over and just call me up, Joe, you got any decoys? Well, hell, I had decoys come on my ears. Nobody, nothing to do with it. I mean, he'd get in that car and he'd come over for a weekend, and, you know, we'd trade some, buy some. He'd kind of buy a bunch for me, and I think he'd haul them back to Cincinnati and spread them out among the other guys. But he was a fine gentleman, a real fine gentleman.
he did a lot of Mackey's restoration.
You know, Harold Hartel did a lot more, believe me. I met Jim Foote, like I said, in '69 at DeKalb. if you notice that table, that was his quilling collection. Jim was a little smarter, him and this next guy coming up. As I said before, the rage was get them all. I mean, if you went to Delka's, he had piles of them. Phyllis Ellison, you go to her house, I mean, the church was just jam-packed with them. Most of the collectors, excuse me, weren't sophisticated enough. The two or three, I don't know, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I'm not going to say smartest ones or that, but Jim was very particular. Ed DeNavarre was particular, and the Hulls. I met Ed and knew him a long time, and he's still alive. I think he knew more about Michigan decoys than anybody at the time. And if you study what's on the wall, there's no junk. Ken, is that right? He found all the box? I'm not sure. Pardon? Yeah, he bought them from Bach. But him and I started trading, and I got some really good Michigan birds from him, and he was smart. He collected Illinois. A lot of these guys stereotype their collecting interest. I'm just going to collect Evans. I'm just going to collect Masons. I'm just going to collect Michigan. I'm just going to collect Illinois River. Ed diversified himself pretty good. He liked everything. You can see there's a Walker, there's a Graves, there's a Ira Hudson, there's a Ward, there's a Special Order Mason, there's an Ellison Sleeper, Pizzini, Heron. I mean, Ed had really good taste, and he was a really nice man. He really spearheaded the Michigan, him and Delka, Ed and Jim Foote really got that Michigan show going and on its feet, and it used to be a thrill to go up there. I mean, it probably is, but every good thing must end. But they really worked hard, and he was a heck of a guy. Well, that's that part of the story. Now we'll get to me.
No, not quite.
Well, my best find I ever found is Donna.
Oh, what a politician.
I mean, she sat through a lot. I did, when you're young, you do things you wish you would have did or could have did or that, but luckily I collected decoys, and she did without a lot for me to buy some decoys. Her and I, like I said before, decoy show, I'd say, let's just go and get some decoys. And we go out and buy these decoys for $1, $2, $5. And at the time, you know, I bought the Jolly rig. Old man Jolly called me, and he was going to sell his 24 walkers. That's the Jolly walkers. And the price was $75 a piece, which was enormous price. So I went over and I bought 3 or 4, which I always try to do, and try to hurry up and sell 2 of them to help pay for the other 2. And this went on and on. One day, somebody told me about old man Scheinheider who had some decoys for sale. So I went down to Peoria, and it was hot, wasn't it, Donna? I think we had one baby, two babies, yeah, and it was July. And I walked in and we talked, and you got to remember now, I'm 19, this guy is 86 and grumpy and ornery as can be, and he says, all right, come on, we're going to look at these decoys. And we walked out, and he had a big barn. I looked up at that barn, and there was a damn dozen Scheinheider geese. And I said, boy, I like them. And he said, you got enough money? And I said, yeah. And I had $32 to my name. So I said, what's the price? He said, $1,000 for the dozen or $100 each. So I'm figuring, it's Friday. I said, all right, I'll take 3. I wrote him a check for $300. I had $22 in checking account. So that gave me Monday to get $300. I barely made it. I mean, I called lot of people try to sell them a Shiner Goose for $150. I sold one for $150 right away. The second one I sold, the guy gave me $100. He was going to give me $25 a month for the next 2 months. So that gave me the third one for $50. So then I got talking to Mackie and Joe French. So French come up about a couple. He sent ones to Mackie. Mackie didn't like them. Mackie did not like them. Mackie wouldn't pay $200 for one. He sent them back. I called, at the time I was talking to Del Ernest. She said, have him send me one. So she bought one. And I think she ended up buying 4. 6 at the end? All right. Well, they got dispersed. So that was one of my lesser or greater goof ups. Everybody know who that is?
George.
Pardon?
George.
That's correct. He again was in the numbers business. They used to call him a buck a duck. A buck a dock. He'd pay $1 for a decoy. That's he always bragged. I never paid more than $1. That was his basement. These were the decoys up in his house. Now I didn't take these pictures. That's a Willie Ross loon. I don't know where that ended up. That black duck's sitting in Jim Cook's collection. That seagull is sitting in somebody's collection, sitting in the audience if he wants to raise his hand. There's one thing that's very interesting. These pictures were taken in 1956, and I really studied them. I mean, I studied them with a magnifying glass. And there's, Mr. Ingers, you tell me what's missing in this collection. If you notice the bird on the lamp, you see the bird on the lamp. Anybody know what it is?
It's a wildflower goldeneye hen.
That's correct.
You cheat.
Yeah, you had inference inside information, Mr. Hayden. Anyway, you see that bird there? This last summer, a guy, a widow called me. She said, "You interested in some decoys? My husband died, blah, 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 blah." So I went up to Arlington Park. I went down in the basement, and there was that damn decoy sitting. Right there. I don't know how he got it. It just amazed me. There I was.
Did it still have the same lampshade?
Pardon?
Did it still have the same lampshade?
No, it was missing the lamp.
Lamp with it. I got a short change.
Are those Baileys, Joe? The old squaws? Yeah.
Is that a shiny wheel with black duck in front?
Pardon?
Is that a wheel with black duck in front?
That front, I think it's a Wheeler or a Lang. I mean, I can't tell. Now George made a little mistake along in his collecting line. We'll talk about that. Yeah. He decided to build a swimming pool, and everybody thought it was great. He put those birds in there. There's a killer pair right there. I don't know what they'd bring now, Russ. I don't know where they ended up. Do you, Alan? I kind of think, God bless his soul, Robin might have dispersed them. A pair of Lincoln Mergansers. This is when he built the famous pool. And that was all right for about 3 years, and then one day he went out there, they were all white. The chlorine.
He used to throw them in the water.
Yeah.
Oh, just neat.
Here, all right, here's the first guy I ever met.
Will Pennington, you met him.
He was a plumbing salesman, Will Pennington. And he'd travel up and down that Illinois River, and he'd go and visit his customers, and then he'd pick decoys. And like I say, he's the first one he'd come knocking at my door one night, and he says, "Hey, I'm Will Pennington, and I collect," and blah, blah, blah. And he got me going pretty good, but he got me interested talking to Joe French, and then I was off to the races. He specialized in Illinois River, as you can see. I got a cob there, too.
Joe, why does he have his coat on?
He's out in the garage. He kept all the decoys in the garage. No heat, no security, nothing. They're all just out in the garage.
Yeah.
Will died, I think, about 1973, and those decoys sat there, and you know, whoever went up there, Mrs. Pennington, just sell them. Take what you want, whatever you want to give me. This guy was the first collector, and probably, I know he is the oldest living collector alive today. He's been like a, pardon?
If he heard you say that.
Well, he doesn't want to tell anybody how old he is, so you can all guess. But he started collecting decoys in 1952. But leave that there. If you notice, he's got a Purdue goose and the Walker goose I now own. Haas pintail. You see the carriage house redhead down in the corner? Pioletti. No human being has left as much to museums as this guy has. I mean, if you knew what he donated to the Ford Museum, the Illinois State Museum, the Ward Foundation, the Chesapeake Bay, the St. Louis Museum, and Lakeview Museum, Joe really gave a lot, and he really gave his whole life to decoys. And like I say, he started in 52, and he had everything of his own. He's really not, this is his collection today. It's really a lot of shorebirds and a lot of miniatures. He might have 700, 800 miniatures and at least 1,000 shorebirds. Pardon? Probably. If you look between every, I don't know, can you go back? If you look between, underneath every shorebird, there's a miniature. Yeah, I think he's got 90 or 100 crolls, I don't know. If you notice, there's a Whittington goose in their upper left-hand side. That's sitting in my house now, and in the bottom, it come one day in the mail, and it said, I got this from Hick Whittington in 1956. I've had it long enough, and it should be beware, belongs back in Illinois, and hope you enjoy it. That goose is going to be on the cover of our exhibit booklet at the Midwest Decoy Show this year. Hector made that goose about 1940. Again, I own it, but I really think it's the finest thing Whittington ever made. That's Rut and I. I was 19, Randy was 20 in Mackey's basement. This is a story.
Security, eh, Joe?
Huh?
He didn't have much security, did he?
No.
Who's the guy with the beard?
Mr. Hay, do you want to tell him what that is?
I'll let you tell him.
That's when Mr. Hay and I got accused of robbing the Audubon Society Museum of Connecticut. Yeah, the Connecticut Audubon Society Museum of 86 wheelers. 74, I'm sorry. Hayden almost got run out of the state.
Carpetbagger,
They call him a carpetbagger. I don't know how many are familiar, but I worked for Jim Cook, and Jim was trying to build one of the best collections of decoys, and he hired me to do it and manage some of his property. And Alan called me one day and he says, hey, they're going to sell all the shank wheelers in the museum. I said, oh, bullshit. Excuse me, ladies. He said, they are. He said, we can buy them. So I called Jim, and Jim said, yeah, we'll go in. And so Alan negotiated it, and I don't know. I think it's long. I can tell them what we paid for the damn things. I don't care.
Published, $274,000.
$274,000 for 86 of them.
You got one of those. Remember the snow goose?
Yeah. So this gets better. So that's a picture of me coming out with this goose. So I hired, used to be a policeman, so I hired this big gorilla guy to fly out with me because we had to load him up, put him in a truck and drive back. And we drove across that bridge, what was it, Hayde?
I-95 in Greenwich.
Right, about 2 hours before it went in the ground
Right? Whole bridge collapsed.
with this truckload of Shane Wheelers. But anyway, that happened to be, turned out Mr. Cook's got the majority of them and he ended up getting them for next to nothing. Because I don't know what it averaged out to, but that was a good deal. All right, now we get back to my story, how I used to just go around and knock on doors and buy things. That was just a bunch of Purdue's I found, I don't know where, but someplace. Group of crows, Hyatt All. Hyatt All's, door and all's, the price of them have come up, escalated lately. Oh, this is a great one. The crow in the middle, you don't notice it. The wings actually go up, the mouth opens, and the tongue comes down. You pull on a string. Those are all Purdue's. There was a character in Spring Valley, Hayden knows his name's Charlie Bruno. And Charlie was a picker, but he never had any money. And I mean, he's been picking ducks for 30 years, but boy, he's found some great ones. I mean, one day he called me, he said, I got some Ward Brother coots. Well, he had Mason coots with WB burnt in the bottom from the Winus Point Club. And he found a Curl Merganser, and he found the finest pair of Evans decoys known. Alan was at my house duck hunting, and he knocked at the door, and a pair of full-size Evans green-winged teal hollow. They're hollow. They're just spectacular. Mr. Cook owns them now. But anyway, he comes over to my house. He says, hey, I was at a guy's house, and he had some Purdue crows, and he wanted $50 a piece for them. I said, you didn't buy me? No, I have the money. So he gave me the guy's name, and we call, and the guy says, yeah, come on up tomorrow, Joe. So Don and I go up there, and we go in, and you make the small talk, and she nudges me like that, and I look up, and there's one crow sitting on top of the ice box, pretty nice one. And the guy said, the rest of them are out in the garage. So we go out in the garage, and I look down, he's got a few paper mache and a couple of Al Reese. He said, you interested in those? You know, you play cool. Yeah, you know. Because I'm looking over on the side, he's got another 4 or 5 of these good crows for $50 a piece. So he says, okay. So Don is making small talk with his wife, and they, distracted. I think they sold Beanie Babies or crochet stuff, but they were antique dealers, but they didn't have no idea. He said, well, there's some more decoys up above. He gets up on a ladder and he starts handing me down a few more crows. And then he said, and we're talking, and Don is yakking like crazy with his wife, and he says to his wife, honey, where's that one with the mouth that opens that the tongue comes out? Boy, I give Donna this look, I don't say a word, and down it comes. So those cost me $450. One. These are all Mosley's, Henry Holmes, and a couple Walkers. I got them for free. I mean, zero. The person, the old lady owned them, liked me, and knew I liked hot ducks, and one day she called me and said, just come and get them.
And they were in a window seat?
Yeah. You can see the Henry Holmes pintails, a few Walkers, and so. This is no bull now. I'm going down the road and there's that sign. So I wheels in and I asked the guy, what's going on? He said, oh, we're selling the place. I said, got any old wooden decoys? He said, there's some out there in the back. And I ended up with that bunch. No, they cost me, I think they $10 each. If you notice, there's a Ellison sleeper in the front.
Buy the duck wire?
Okay.
No, didn't buy the Mart.
What
You got the sign?
Produce it.
Now, Mr. Hayde, you can't say this because you know everything. Somebody tell me what's wrong with this dozen of Masons.
Too many hens.
Correct. So Masons always made 8 drakes and 4 hens except this dozen for some reason. That's how I found them. I got those up at Point Mouet. I don't know who. Montgomery have those damn birds, Alan?
don't remember.
Well, I mean, I know I got them up at Point Mui one day. I got the snaky-head mallard and the 3 buffalo-heads. Somebody, I bought them from somebody up
Still
there.
have the buffalo heads?
Pardon?
Still have those buffalo heads?
Yeah. This is a good one. A guy called me and said, "Hey, you buy decoys?" I said, "Yeah." So we go down. Nah, it was a while ago, but he had a pair of graves on the kitchen table, and he says, "I had these at the gun show. Guy offered me $50 each." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, what would you pay?" And I said, "I'll pay a lot more than that." He said, "Well, it's got to be a lot more." I said, "How about $100 each?" He said, "Okay." So I got 2 sacks I put up above the attic in the garage when I went to the war, World War II. I said, "Okay, there's the sacks." So we get up there, and I get a ladder, and what he did, he petitioned it, and he put a false ceiling in, but he didn't put no floor. And in the back, the sacks were, but you couldn't walk. You had to walk on the 2x4s. And he tells me, he says, "Boy, you're going to fall through." I said, "No." He said, "Why don't you wait till next week when my kid comes down from Chicago? He can get up there, he's lighter, and get him." I said, "No, no, no." I said, "I wanted to get him and get him out." Well, long story short, I bought them all. And that's probably the last bunch of decoys that I bought like that out of an attic or a garage or a boathouse or anything.
Is this Canada?
Pardon?
Is that Canada?
No, that was in Peoria.
When was that?
Pardon?
What year?
10 years ago. 12, maybe even 12. This was a good bunch. They were called the Zigley Purdue's. John Zigley was an architect from Peoria, had a lot of money, and he ordered a lot of good decoys from Purdue. And I ended up with, I don't know how many are there one day. They were cheap. All right, this will start my basement. I'll give you a couple war stories. The best find I think I ever found in Ohio, and Mr. Young, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or he's shaking his head, he don't even want to talk about it. But when was that, Dan? 1970? Huh? 69. For some reason, I was all over hell when I was a kid. I mean, I just, I'd go to Long Point, I was over here getting in everybody's hair. I mean, it was just like you were on dope and you had to get a fix. I had to get decoys. Somehow I got over here and I met that, who was that game warden? The federal game warden. Right here. He was a federal game warden, collected decoys, he got in everybody's hair, but he's the guy who found all the HHB Brown Masons. He showed up at Point Mui with 2-3 dozen, Dan? HH Brown Masons mint. There were $50 for the regular one, $75 for the snaky heads. And I really think he had the premier widget Mr. Hayden Goldberg had, because he had one. What do you think, Dan? He had it, and he wouldn't sell that, and he got religion, he went to Africa, and he disappeared. But he left that decoy with his sister in Ohio, and it showed up. Anyway,
What year was this job?
69, 70. I got a call from, what was the club manager's name, Tucson? Lloyd St. Clair. "Mr. Tonelli, you buy decoys?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I got a bunch I want to sell. I want to put my girl to school and buy the other one a piano? Piano or, I don't know, anyway." I said, "Yeah, he said, "But I don't want money for him." I said, "Well, what do you want?" He says, $2,500. And I go, "Oh, $2,500. I said, "What do you got?" He said, "Well, I know what I got." For somehow, somebody told him. He had 1 dozen of the DB Day Premier Mallards, special order. He had 1 dozen DB Day Detroit grade canvasbacks. He had 4 Challenge Teal DB Days. He had 4 Elmer Crowells, 2 Black Ducks, 2 Pintails out of the Hoover rig. And he had about a few Evans and, I don't know, a bunch of junk, 20 or 30 other decoys. $2,500. So I said, "Oh, all right." So I called Randy. I said, "Hey, Randy, we can buy all these good masons for $2,500. He said, "Where are we going to get $2,500? I said, "I don't know." So we let it go. And we sat on it for about 3 weeks. And we got thinking about it. I called Dick Bruss. He's got a pair of the DVD teal, I think, now. And I said, hey, Dick, I know where I can buy these Mason teal. Would you be interested in them at $100 for the pair? And he really didn't jump on it either. So anyway, long story short, I got the money from my dad. I drove over here and bought them. So that's about the only thing I did in Ohio. Michigan, I was up there. I knew Ed and that. And there was a guy by the name of Ed Lazat. And when you used to first go to Point Mouet, Ed Lazat had a little building down at the far end, the very end of the point, at the end, where the parking lot. He had like a little shack where he sold stuff, and he rented out decoys. And he was one of the original caretakers of Point Mouet Club, and he invited Donna and I over to his house. And I went over there. He had a bunch of wooden decoys out back. He had a bunch in his basement, but he had a pair of low-head Quillins in original paint in his front room. And no, I ain't gonna sell those. You can buy everything down there, 10 bucks, 20 bucks, 30 bucks. I gave him $100 each. Delka almost killed me when I gave him that $100 each for those 2 decoys. I mean, it just ruined it. There was another guy up there, probably nobody, well, some of you Michigan guys, his name was Ed Childs. And Ed was another one that lived right there. Oh, he was furious with me. Boy, I got the phone calls, ruined everything because you paid $100 for those decoys each. So this is part of our stuff in our house. Yell if you want to know what anything is. You can. Some of you have been there and seen it, and it's a little more organized, but not quite. Who the heck was Valley? Will you ask Valley? You here? You see this canvas back hen way up here on the right? That's early Tory Ward. Made for Jack Kaiser, 1961. That's just some Mason stuff, you know, lots of Masons. These are Descharmes. We got a lot of little songbirds. Don and I were always kind of pack rats, and we picked up a lot of little different things. There's easy. Yeah, go back once. There's a pair of Purdue's, and that's an Elmer Kroll, and another Purdue. That's an incubator they're sitting on. It should bring any eggs. Okay. Yeah. If anybody wants a signed autographed copy of the guides on cover Waterfall, I can arrange that. This is just some folk art. Well, there's some awards there. Hartel shorebirds. The little birds in the back are Walker miniatures. Pardon? Okay.
What do you carry for insurance, Joe?
Zero.
A lot of prayers.
Hold on, go back. Let's go slower. All of this stuff, that whirligig, that one, honest to God, I took them off barns or out of houses. I mean, I didn't buy them at antique shows or anything. They come out of the woods. Yeah, that horse painting, I paid 10 bucks for it. Don Snyder was another early collector from Kentucky. He used to come up and buy decoys for me. I'd be thrilled when these guys like Snyder or Winston and Hayden Dwyer used to come over and buy decoys for me, and because again there wasn't much outlet. I bought 11 really good Walker Mallards out of the Vance rig. I paid $4 grand for them. All right, now I got $4 grand again. I borrowed the money from my old man, and my mother and father weren't too happy for me. I got thrown out of college for skipping to go duck hunting, and I was married, and I was selling decoys, and you know, I just wasn't going into the family business. They really thought it was going to be a bum. And I called Alan, and I said, hey, I got these great carved wing Walker mallards. And he said, yeah. I said, that's $6.50. And I said, you can have 3 or 4. So did the 3 just come?
3, yeah. It took 3.
Well, the 3 amigos come over.
I thought you
Bob
told me there were
Dwyer was
1,000,
another
Alan.
one. They come over and I laid out these 10 walkers. And I said, I'm gonna keep these so you do what you want with these. And yeah, why'd you tell the rest, Hade?
Well, there were 3 of us that came over, and I reserved 3 walkers. And I called Tom and I said, hey, you want a walker? And he said, oh yeah. I called Bob Dwyer and he said, yeah. So we got over there, and then Tom says, well, we got to flip to see who gets first choice. Well, I got last choice. But they were all good.
I think the worst one I had, I wanted 500 for it. I think Mr. Hayes got it in his room, and for the heck of it, you should look at the price now.
And Joe,
Yeah.
Walker's production, somebody once told me he did very few of it.
I don't think he did 200. I don't think he did 200. He made them all for the Princeton Game and Fish Club. That's I'm a member, and that was in Princeton, Illinois. What you got to remember about Walker, when he was making decoys, he was getting like $100 a dozen. Purdue was getting $36 a dozen. So yeah, you had to have some money to buy them, and he made them, and they stayed right in Bureau County. Oh, that come off of Barn, Minnesota. Okay, go on. The snake is from Michigan. Who made it, Dieter?
Rotor.
That's correct.
You
You win the prize. The birdhouse, that come off of a barn in Minnesota. That's kind of cute. That's an Uncle Sam.
Painting.
Yeah.
The painting, that dead mount is Tony Drury, D-U-R-Y.
The other one's a limbo Hana on the left. This is the entrance to my decoy room. The 2 paintings are Gus R. Smarnold on the both sides, and the one above it's a Shemigan. The bait sign's from Michigan. Well, you can see, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. The tapestry was made by Luann Forbes.
That was a rug. She was going to make me a throne for my couch. I traded her a fish decoy, and it ended up fitting on a king-size bed, so I use it as a closet. She scanned old photos from Mudlight.
The tops, Purdue's, God, Algarin, Delaware River. The Purdue sleeping pintail hen. I bought it, another pintail hen, and the Purdue green-winged teal sleeper on my fireplace for $5 a piece, 1965. The Quillins are the ones I got from Lazat for $100 each. The Shorts I got probably, most of those probably come from Mackey. The bottom birds I found, I either got them from Dean Navarre or somebody. That's a shorter with the board goes in the bottom, and the golden eyes, and the Chambers redhead. Yeah. I had a good find in Canada, at Lake St. Clair. I put an ad up at Wapu Island one time too. I got Indian guide called me, and I think I got 15 geese. There was 2 Dodges, 4 Warrens, and the rest were Chambers for $250. So that was a pretty good hit. And I become friends with the one of the Reeves on Long Point. He was the postmaster, and Don and I would go up there, and I bought a lot of decoys there, and he never more than $5 or $10. And I left so many behind. I mean, one day those solid body JRWs that were painted perfect, they had bills brokered out for $5 a piece. I must have left 30 of them in one boathouse. That's the top of one of my decoy rooms. Anybody got any questions? What's up there, or go fire ahead? Again, Valley, you see the early Tory Ward cans on the On the live duck box? Don't go back, I'll tell them a story. Yeah. You see, yeah, go ahead.
Back in the 90s, you hit a deal in Canada, 55 or 60 decoys. It was mid-90s.
Probably, and I bought a lot of them out of there.
You brought many of them to Oshkosh.
Probably.
Does that ring a bell? Masons?
The Masons. Yeah, I got those. Those come from Ontario. I used to be right up there at St. Williams, Turkey Point, all that. You see the two birch geese? One on each end? Randy Root and I, we were goose on Southern Illinois, 1970 again. And you know, you go out to the goose pit, and we had a pond in front of us, and the sun's coming up, and it's getting light, and we're there, and I nudged Root. I said, "Hey, Root, look what the hell's floating in front of us." And there were 6 of those birch geese. And the best birch geese come from Southern Illinois. They were at Bungard Island Club, the Bungard Island Club, and the state bought it, and there was a couple guys that owned a goose club by the Peacock brothers. So I went back in there and I said, "Hey, Milton," I said, "you got those goose decoys floating out there?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I want to buy them." He said, "They ain't for sale." I said, "Milton, I want to buy those goose decoys." He said, "Yeah, what do you, I suppose you think you're going to give me a lot of money?" I said, "I'll give you $500 for the 6 of them." He had this kid work for him. He told that kid, the kid was sitting there drinking a cup of coffee and eating. He says, "Get up there and go get those decoys before these guys change their mind." And the kid kept eating. He literally grabbed that kid and threw him out the door to go and get the decoys. And the birch geese that come from Southern Illinois are probably some of the finest because they didn't get repainted and they weren't used in saltwater. There was probably 3 dozen down there that got dispersed through the country. Good. So I got to know Alan pretty good, and then I met them in Davenport one time, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I said, "Stop by my house, I got a few decoys for sale." And they did. They didn't buy anything. Tell them what you turned down, Alan.
Yeah, I gotta
I
figure
turned
out
down
just
2 decoys. Purdue pintail hen sleeper for $750 and a Walker pintail for $500.
he went to the whole thing.
Didn't have the money, couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's the thing. About 72, there was a character by the name of Torrey Ward, and boy, he was fun. He lived in up in Portage-la-Pierre, and he called me one day, and I knew him. He said, "Hey, I got all these great St. Clair Flats decoys." And I said, "Yeah." Yes, I said, "Tell me about them." He said, "They say JRW Maker on the bottom." I got pintails and mallards and canvasbacks. I got some spoonbills. I said, "Yeah, what do you, Torrey?" He says, "Oh, they got to be worth $75 a piece." I said, "Are you crazy?" He said, "They're spectacular." I said, "Well, send me one." So he sent me one that looked pretty good. Now, no one knew who JRW was. So I got an airplane, I fly up there, rent a car, I go over there and I buy, I don't know, 35, 40 JRWs, really good ones. And now I got $75 a piece in them, airplane fare and everything, and I'm running on a shoestring. I come back, call Dina Varr, I call Lil Jackson, I call Bill Lombrock, I call Mr. Hay. I say, "I got these great birds, JRWs. Who's JRW?" I said, "Must be Warren's brother." Yeah. I said, "Boy, you da-da-da-da-da-da-da. How much?" 125. Ask him how many he bought.
Well, sooner or later, I bought about 20, but I didn't buy any that first day.
No, he didn't. I mean, it took me 2 years to get rid of those birds. It was hard to sell them. I mean, people didn't have any money. So, anyway, this getting back to this, that's a collection of Purdue duck calls. I don't know if anybody has seen the last issue of Decoy magazine. I really like them, especially the carved ones, and I got a few, like, I don't know, 35 of them or so. Everybody, the flying spoonbills, you know who made them? Ken Anger.